Quick, I just thought I'd make a quick video on this. And a lot of people get this part wrong, so I wanted to kind of talk to you about it um, and explain to you guys why engineering reasons why that they have thicknesses on rotors, and it is not typically because of heat. A lot of people think, well, a thinner rotor gets hotter, you know. Well, in some respects that's true, but this is really what it is. Okay, so your piston and your caliper. Same. I'm going to show you your brake drums in a second. Your piston in your caliper will only go out so far before it falls out of the caliper and actually has the fluid come out and start leaking out. So when it gets out to that distance, it's so far, and when it gets past that, fluid will actually come out and it'll leak and you'll have no brakes. Okay, so what they're doing when they create a thickness is when you add up your brake pads, the thickness of your brake pads, the metal of your brake pads, and the distance of the rotor, when it gets to that point where they'll actually hit metal to metal, it won't, the reason they make these specs is so that it won't start leaking fluid before it reaches a too thin of a distance. So if you think, oh, well, I don't care if my brakes run a little hot because I don't have the right thickness on my rotor, it's actually much more dangerous than that. So if your piston comes out of your caliper because you cheaped out and didn't replace your rotors when they were out of spec, and your piston pops out of that caliper and you have no brakes at all, that's a major problem. Okay, running a little hot, yeah, that's an issue as well. But the main reason is because of that thickness. Now let's go take a look at drum brakes, and I'll show you exactly why having the proper circumference on those is also important. Unfortunately, I just recycled all my old brake drums because I was going to show you from the inside. Actually, I can on this one here. If you look at the inside of here, there is no brakes on this. This is just a front axle. So what happens is on the front rear disc, our drums, is people think, well, you have a really thin drum, that's going to be a problem. But really what it is when you have, let's use this wheel. When you have a wheel, let's say, or a drum, and the inside of your drum is worn out, it becomes a larger circumference, okay? And when it's a larger circumference, what happens is you put your brand new brake shoes in there, and the brake shoe arc isn't exactly the same as the drums. So they used to have these old re-arcing machines back in the old days. They used to take your brake shoes and you put the new linings actually on the metal shoes many years ago, and back when they had asbestos, and this was way before many of you guys' time. And they used to take, and you could re-arc your brake shoe to match your drum. And thickness is important for heat as well, because when they get to a certain point, you can actually wear the drum completely out. But the same reason is for this. So you also have the possibility that your wheel cylinder can separate, but not as bad on drums. It's usually because what happens is, instead of your whole shoe, okay, being able to touch the brake pad, touch the drum, only a portion, maybe say this much or this much, is touching when you're forcing your foot on the brakes, because the amount of circumference here versus the amount of circumference of the shoe is off, because the brake drums are out of specification, and so your brake shoes you're only getting that much stop out of your brake shoe versus having a brake shoe that's this big. So having your brake drums and brake shoes in specification is really important. People go, well, what if you just put thicker linings on? Well, they already have that figured out of exactly how thick the linings can be, and typically if you try and over-spec your linings, which you could do back in the old days with those old brake machines, then it won't fit on the new drum, or you might have the issue of the brake shoe still not touching in the proper place unless you fitted them to the drum. So those of you guys with old cars, a lot of times you can take your shoe and set it in your drum, and maybe you can't get brake drums anymore for your car or whatever, and you can't, maybe you're just gonna not drive it very much or whatever. What you can do, and I'm not going to say this is all up to you, on your liability, okay, not on mine, but what people have done before is they've actually taken the brake shoe, set it in the drum, and then sanded it to fit more better. But sometimes what happens is you end up with a really super thin edge on both ends of the shoe, okay, both ends of the shoe, and a really thick middle, and it'll wear out a lot faster that way. But at least you'll have proper stopping, or a little closer to it. So anyway, that's a little bit about brake shoes and brake drums and rotors, and why they have specifications, and why it's important to make sure that they're right.